closer. I'm going to have some guests up here, so it'll be like we're all sat in the living room. Hello, everyone. I'm Kirsty, and my team and I look after fashion, luxury and lifestyle, and collectibles on eBay. We're going to spend the next sort of 35 minutes talking about why pre-loved fashion is so important for eBay. Now, it will come as no surprise, and Murray mentioned it this morning, that behind the cost of living crisis, what's going on in government, and all that really cheery stuff, but actually the third thing that's most important for customers, and it's on their minds, is being able to make greener choices and thinking about sustainability. And so that's why it makes sense that us being such a large company, we have a responsibility to try and do something here. That, coupled with the fact that we've actually got quite a long history in helping our consumer sellers sell their used inventory. So it just makes sense that we've been trying to lead the change in the conversation and the stigmas attached with buying used, or what we might now call pre-loved fashion inventory. Now, that doesn't mean that we're saying to everybody, you suddenly need to start wearing everything used and pre-loved and not buying new. But actually, just think if 1 in sort of 5 or 1 in 10, or next time you gift something for somebody, you think about buying a pre-loved or a vintage item, and you imagine adding that up, the power that would have, and the amount of items that might be avoided going to landfill. And so some of the things that we've done to amplify the work that we've been doing around pre-loved is, earlier in the year, we launched our Imperfects Hub. So inventory that you as sellers might have that's been returned or not quite perfect, or you might be a seller that has inventory that comes back to you that's used. So we've launched dedicated areas on the site for that inventory to be showcased. And then on top of that, we've worked with some partners as well to amplify that. So who saw Love Island in the summer? No? Yeah. Now, if you didn't, traditionally the islanders that would go into the TV show would wear fast fashion items, but actually we partnered with them for the islanders to wear pre-loved inventory, and that really started to change the conversation that it's okay to wear something that's used. There's no bad stigma attached with that. And then a current partnership is with Oxfam and Secondhand September. And Andy from Oxfam is actually going to join me shortly, and he'll share more about that partnership with you. One of the things that I've been asked actually quite a few times today when I've been talking to fashion sellers is, is this, is it fashionable? Is it fashionable to buy pre-loved fashion? Are you seeing customers actually come to buy this stuff? And actually, over the last 12 months, we've seen a 26% increase in GMV on pre-loved fashion. So people are coming to the site and they are buying it. And we've seen a 27% increase in live listings. So more people are coming to list their inventory that potentially might have ended up in landfill. But we can't do it all alone, so hopefully most of you in the room will know that eBay doesn't buy and sell inventory ourselves. We work with sellers, and so we've been supporting some businesses that have been also trying to change the perceptions and the conversations around pre-loved fashion, and they've created some circular models to help other businesses do that. So I'm pleased to welcome a panel of guests, and they will introduce themselves shortly. So we can give everybody a round of applause, please. My home for the day. Right, if we could kick off, we'll just go along. If you could just introduce yourself, the name, where you work, and a bit about the company, and if you've got an interest in eBay story, because most people do. So, but no pressure.
My name's Chris Mooney. I'm Chief Revenue Officer for ACS Clothing. We are a circular fashion hub based in Glasgow, servicing the UK market, third-party logistics, or reverse logistics as it's called. My interest in eBay story is that I'm an absolute golf nut and a bit of a golf nerd for equipment, and I've traded on eBay for a long time because obviously I'm not a professional golfer, so I always think it's the club's problem and not myself. And so I think so do many other people as well, but my interesting story is that I went to the US Masters in 2017. The carrier Virgin Atlantic lost a flag memorabilia that I had, and I ended up buying one off eBay. And amazingly, it was actually from a family member of someone that actually played in that tournament. So weirdly, it was just a really weird story.
I love it.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Andy Oscliffe. I'm head of e-commerce and retail innovation. That's an exciting role for Oxfam. I've been working in the charity sector for, goodness me, about 7 years now. And essentially what Oxfam does is through the donations that we receive through our shops and stores and through our post-back service, we look at the items that have been received and what we want to put online and what we sell in our shops and stores. And we select some of the more interesting pieces to sell online to give our shoppers a really unique experience. My interesting story is I am a bit of an eBay nut, and I've been personally selling on eBay since 2000. I don't get as much time these days to sell on eBay, but I once bought an item from Poundland, and I won't tell you how much I paid for it, and sold it on eBay for £136. So if you're too posh to shop, I'll find it and sell it.
You have to share, what was the item?
It was actually quite a small, dinky type car, and it was a Chinese police car, and it sold to a customer in Canada.
Oh, very good.
My name's Russell. I run a company called Hold West. I've been selling on eBay for about 10 years. Mainly vintage, second-hand clothing. I can't think of a specific eBay story, but I realized this morning that I've been selling on the platform for 19 years. So I've kind of seen like everything. Yeah. I've seen like everything. Everything you can imagine, I've seen it. So you've done it.
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm co-founder at Reskinned. What we do is we power circular solutions for clothing brands. So what we do in a nutshell is we help them run trade-in models, facilitate their e-commerce, and then deal with all the end of life, so recycling of end of life textiles and making sure that we're just maximizing the reuse potential of everything that we get back. What's my interesting eBay story? I think I've been selling on eBay for 20 years, probably as well, like everybody here. And eBay has actually funded a very lavish racing bike collection through trading, parting bits out of buying bikes kind of complete, and then selling random bits off to Japan, working out there was a market for exotic Italian stuff. And yeah, and that's basically funded a bike collection that's probably worth about 20 grand today.
Oh, very good. Good. Right, we'll get into some questions. Andy, I mentioned about our partnership with Oxfam and Secondhand September. It'd be great if you could just share a little bit of why Secondhand September is so important for Oxfam.
Certainly. It's our flagship annual selling event, an awareness event as well, in terms of the popularity of pre-loved clothing and reuse, the economy, the climate. We have some really interesting stats around how buying a pre-loved pair of jeans can save CO2 in terms of air miles travelled, and when you start to calculate together all the jeans that are bought by UK adults, etc. Similarly, it gives us the opportunity to partner with some pretty big brands. Retail nowadays are very much connected to CSR, corporate social responsibility, and rather than talking about it, a lot of retailers are actually doing it. So we've had in the past a very good relationship with Selfridges. The whole point of Secondhand September is to promote awareness and to try and say to our customers, supporters and donators, try and wear something or buy something that you found secondhand for the month of September and feel proud and excited that you found that unique item. And in terms of what that produces for Oxfam, especially our eBay site is phenomenal. The traffic, the impressions that we see, 25 million impressions so far during September, 500,000 page visits, over 5,500 items that we've sold so far this month, and the returns are extremely low, so less than 1%. So Second-hand September on eBay really works for Oxfam.
Brilliant. Perhaps one for you, Chris. I know you work with a variety of brands in the fashion market. What new business models are those brands coming to you with for them so that you can help them reduce sort of waste and impact?
Yeah, I think probably one of the fastest growing areas has been resale for us. We predominantly were a rental business for 23 years of our sort of journey in menswear. And to give you some idea of scale, we ship on annual basis around 6 million rental items through our facility. Last year we did 100,000 women's wear items and close to 30,000 baby wear, kids wear within rental. Rental is obviously cleaning the garments and also repairing it along the way. And we've done that for 25 years by keeping the garments in as best condition as we can. Yeah. And that transcends really well into resale. And I think with the pandemic, rental kind of took a bit of a halt and a bit of a stop point in its growth journey. And there was a big shift on resale and pre-loved fashion. Mm-hmm. So naturally, with repair capability and cleaning capability, we've seen a big transition of brands wanting to enter that space and also as well to facilitate it outside of their own operating environment of direct-to-consumer e-com. Mm-hmm. So with that, it's a different consumer journey, and we're taking them on that journey and linking up with eBay. It just means that you're giving them an extension that they don't currently have within their D2C portfolio.
Yeah, got it. Thank you. And perhaps this is one for all of you, is what are you seeing change with customers in terms of their behaviour, specifically in the fashion market at the moment?
I think probably whereas kind of a few years ago, kind of purchase consideration was driven by, what something looks like, basically. Now we're definitely, fashion, skincare, people are armed, and there's much more of a movement towards conscious consumption. So yes, you will look at an item and decide whether you like it, but then people are actually really wanting to dig into what it's made of, what are the ethics of that particular company, and that's not going to go away. Basically, that purchase decision criteria is really starting to shift to what you could describe as soft metrics, basically.
Got it.
I would just add that the ownership model of people and products is changing, especially within fashion, whether that's renting for an occasion or renting to go into the office once a month rather than 5 times a week. Mm-hmm. And similarly, that relationship is evolving and changing now, so that, we're built on fast fashion and consumption at the minute. It's in our face every day. You've only got to look at the Boohoo Kourtney Kardashian announcement last week, and you see the amount of noise that is driven through all channels within fashion. She prominently flies private jets. Boohoo, they had the Leicester scandal. And I think in this country, we're happily put people down, but they've got to take their steps and their small steps.
I suppose the thing I've noticed is people have, they're much less bothered about wear, damage, and marks and stains, like their eBay words, but people have an appreciation for the wear being a positive thing. Mm-hmm. So, and it's brands like Levi's, Patagonia, these companies are pushing this concept that just because something's worn, slightly damaged, that's the history of the item, that's the story, that's kind of what you're buying. And I just find that so much more interesting, and I think a lot of our consumers are kind of moving that way as well,
Yeah. I'd also say that the customers changed in terms of their behaviour. So if you look at, we're fortunate enough to have nearly 600 high street shops. I was asked recently, is selling pre-loved fashion online the death of the charity shop? And my answer was very quickly, never, no way. It's on trend to go into a charity shop and find something that's pre-loved. It's really fashionable to turn up to a party and for someone to comment on a suit or a dress or an item that you're wearing and say, oh, that's quite nice, where did you get that from? You can now actually say, oh, I got it from a charity shop, and people are amazed, and we're a nation of bargain hunters. So from that point of view, it's, dare I use the term, en vogue. But I think what you're seeing now in terms of, and I'm going to mention fast fashion and slow fashion, what you're seeing is that a consumer, a younger consumer, is prepared to go and buy an item on the process of, at some point, I'm going to sell this, so I'm going to wear it for 3 months and then I'm going to sell it. Hopefully they donate it. But if they sell it, they'll sell it on eBay, and you've almost got that circular fashion. Wear something for 3 months, get some enjoyment out of it, and then sell it, use the money to go and buy something else.
Yeah. Old fashion is becoming fashionable. So.
Well, I noticed the rug. I think that's one of ours.
Okay, Matt, you've recently launched on eBay, and one of the things that would be great for you to talk about is some of the things that you've implemented from a customer service perspective for your customers to be able to feel like they're buying new and the experience they get from buying new, but actually buying pre-loved.
Yeah, so one of the things that when we set this business up was very much looking at who isn't buying pre-loved at the moment. And we did a load of research to understand kind of what are the barriers, what's blocking people, because, you know, I think with clothing, it's become a bit of a, we found this idea and this sort of thought that, you know, for a lot of people, as soon as they cut the tags out of the garments, they think they're worthless, basically, you know, which is why so much clothing ends up in landfill. You know, there are problems often with clothing banks where, you know, you get there and you can't donate them. And what we wanted to do is start to create a model where actually we get people to revalue their clothes. And this thought of, you know, making buying pre-loved like buying new for a lot of people is really important. So a lot of what we do and also ACS do is we ensure that every garment that goes out has either been ozone cleansed or it's been repaired. But we have a grading system so that, you know exactly that this is going to be within a quality grade. And that gives people confidence to buy pre-loved. And we kind of sort of, it's a bit like akin to buying second-hand cars. You know, you've got this whole idea of, with the reskin model, we power it for brands, and we do kind of things like Sweaty Betty. It's the brand-approved pre-loved store that we're building, you know, with you guys. We've just launched one for Jules. And I think what's really interesting about this is it's not just young people as well who are embracing this. You know, everyone thinks it's the Depop community and 20-somethings, but we're actually seeing real take-up with brands and their customers where we didn't think they'd really embrace pre-loved, but if it's presented well, they've got that surety that they can return it, basically, if they're not happy with it, and they're buying it from a trusted environment. You know, that is what's going to really create the step change in the volume around pre-loved, I think.
Brilliant. Russell, you mentioned you've been trading on the platform as a pre-loved seller for a lot of years. Mm-hmm. Can you share for perhaps the people in the audience, like, what's the secret to your success?
I suppose I could summarize it by, say, like, be good. That's kind of, it sounds really simple, but that's kind of like our core thing. I think that a lot of companies that I kind of respect and look to, it's quite simple. It's like they make a quality product and it's like a fair price. And then if it's not good, there's good customer service. And I think that is like the heart of a good business. And on eBay, I think a lot of people, and on all marketplaces, they maybe see it as a way to like get rid of end-of-line stock or stuff that they don't consider good enough for their kind of main shop. But I think when I started selling, like the business like 10 years ago, I just saw it as a method of getting in front of millions of people. Like when you see the impressions on your listings, there's millions of people looking at those. And then probably at the core of what we do, and key to success with that is like imagery. You're selling like an online thing, the only way you can present it, especially with phones now, people aren't even reading descriptions. They're looking at the pictures. And I think that kind of drives like the main bit of our success, really. And then customer service, it's like a bit, maybe it's easy on Marketplace to kind of maybe put something out there that's not great. and then be a bit reticent to give people a refund if it happens to have a button missing. But we just always are like, refund, replace. And then those customers do come back. And we have people that buy 20, 30 things a year from our store because they've got that kind of customer experience, which I associate with higher end e-commerce platforms. I've just always thought, why can eBay not be the same in terms of the experience?
Yeah. Anything any of you want to add?
I think trust is huge in this, because that thing about, that's why part of the reason people like brands or buy from brands in certain segments. And I think within eBay as well, building that idea of your retail environment on the eBay platform, and differentiating yourself in that way, massively important.
And that's actually, like when I see sellers, I'm sure no one here, like selling like counterfeit stuff or things that you just know that they're fake, it's like ruining the game for everybody. Our job is to take this thing, secondhand clothing, which for generations people have thought was worthless and not good, and associated it with things like counterfeits, and make it into something everyone accepts and wants to buy. And I kind of think that just if we can do like as good a job as possible to put out their quality, that's what's going to like push it forward.
Okay. Perhaps one for all of you. How do you think eBay can support someone selling pre-loved items on eBay and also grow like fashion circular economy?
We've seen an uptake from our team. There's a specialist training program for charities called Charity Connect. And I think in terms of traditionally in the particular model that we operate, it's normally a volunteer who will put together a listing. To be able to transfer those skills of what makes a perfect listing to a volunteer, so when they're looking at that particular item, they can realise the maximum value of what they actually have, has been really useful. I know there's an awful lot of hints and tips and tricks through eBay, through the seller pages as well, which are always worthwhile looking at. But personally, one of my best tricks is to use promoted listings. And I recall a huge number of LED head torches being donated to my previous organisation that I worked for. And the staff just went crazy. I think it was 24, 26 pallets of stuff. Where are we going to put it all, Andy? You're mad. Why have we accepted this donation? And I used promoted listings. And I secretly got the top spot of LED head torch on eBay, but made sure that when everyone saw, oh, I want an LED head torch, they'd got no idea they were buying it from a charity. They'd just seen that's what they wanted to buy. When they read the description and they looked at, 5,000 items unique every week, I wonder what else these guys have got. And they went on to fill their basket, and we could see that a typical customer was spending or putting 2 or 3 items in their basket, not just an LED head torch. So promoted listings.
I think curation actually is kind of quite for fashion basically, or for pre-loved, because it's a kind of hard one to do on a marketplace. But one of the things that we found that people are struggling a bit with is kind of a lot of the, when you buy new fashion, you go onto a brand site and you're presented a look and people buy a look and they put that look together either themselves, but out of items that are, merchandised, right? So I think to really help grow pre-loved as well, that idea of helping people who don't naturally have that affinity for being able to build looks, that becomes a really interesting idea, I think. And then being able to pull different sellers in and actually, I think a lot of with pre-loved as well, traditionally, you've had sellers who've gravitated to certain styles like 50s, prom dresses, whatever it might be. But I think now for the expansion of that is really kind of, how you put that pre-loved look together, got it out in the end.
I'd agree with that. If you'd have asked me 2 or 3 years ago, can I donate a wedding dress to your organisation, I'd have said, keep it. because we couldn't sell them for love nor money. And the marketplace has developed so much now that bridal is a really exciting category on eBay. And we find now that we can realise much more value from bridal that's donated than what we ever did before. And I know Halloween's coming up. Apparently wedding dresses are popular at Halloween for some reason.
Yeah.
Is that, they trash them, do they?
Yeah.
I suppose supporting sellers. I think eBay's made a lot of really good steps. I think that for a while there was no communication between what we were trying to do, and you get items flagged as being fake and they weren't, and all this kind of thing. So I think there's definitely a lot of kind of good steps that were made. I just think continued communication. We kind of all want the same thing, and I think that it's quite a complex problem. We're trying to frame something that's previously, as we talked about before, previously been considered negative to make it extremely positive. And I think that communication between what we're doing on the ground, seeing thousands of items every day coming through, is kind of the big thing that's going to make it work.
I just wanted to add that the stake in the ground put in by eBay this year on Love Island and Pre-Loved, and the noise that generated sort of throughout the industry and the PR, I think for consumers was just an absolute game changer out there. And I think that going forwards as well, that'll always be talked about, because that program is watched by Gen Z so religiously. They follow it and they follow all the fashion trends, and it's been led by fast fashion. And suddenly the disruptor, which is eBay and why we're here today, put that stake in that ground, and that is absolutely huge.
Brilliant. And have you got any thoughts around what the wider industry needs to do to accelerate circular fashion?
I think there's a lot of organisations, and these guys go at it from a commercial perspective, so they'll be a lot more eager to answer this question than I will. But I think in terms of a lot of the retailers now are realising that that's what their customer set's looking for. So take-back schemes, post-back schemes, etc. But I just think we have to give the customer credit. They have realised that the item that they're buying, they can resell or they can donate. And that's what they're doing. The customer behaviour has changed significantly, and some retailers have been caught out big time and are trying to catch up.
Yeah, I think also customers now are so empowered, right? If you think about, I look at my daughter who's 14, and I look at the time she spends on YouTube, and I look at what she's watching, and basically she is becoming an informed decision maker around kind of everything that she's buying, and her consideration criteria massively is changing now. And I think certainly 14-year-old now who actually really considers whether or not she's going to go into a shop and buy clothes, and she's going, I don't actually really need it, and I'm just going to keep this for a bit longer, and then, as you say, I'll turn it on Depop. And for that generation love that, because there is a social interaction on that platform, but also she sells on eBay as well with various other things as well.
Good.
So, it's not, anyway, sorry. But I think that's changing and that's coming. And I think that behavior, people are looking at brands to understand kind of, to be part of this and to be seen to be participating. And I think that's where this whole, the brand pre-love stuff that we're starting to do now on eBay with the official stores, that is really going to help create that change as well.
And perhaps if there's any sellers in the room that are thinking about they've got inventory that they've got returns, or it's not quite perfect, or they're actually thinking about going down a route similar to you, have you got any sort of hints and tips for people?
I'd say on that, because you might imagine we get the full spectrum of pre-loved fashion, and I would just say from a selling perspective, just be honest. We list items that have got a button missing. We don't have the facilities like these guys to do full repair, etc. We sometimes have items missing from a garment, etc. So I talked about buttons missing, but just be honest, because I think that's what the seller wants to see, that's what the seller wants to know. The buyer wants to know. And in terms of when they receive that item, yeah, the button is missing, but I'll put another button on it.
Yeah, I think also one of the things we've seen on eBay as well, you know, you can utilize so much of the resource that you've got, especially with clothing, basically, because the growth in upcycling at the moment is massive, and people are looking for source garments to create their own creations. We've had a lot of success on doing kind of things like kind of reuse upcycling bundles, where we put product into boxes, and people want it. Which is really, really interesting and I think the thing about that is, if you think cleverly and about the resources that you have and what you might be collecting or you might have as a pre-loved seller, there are ways to monetize it, but more importantly, to actually reuse it in a more sustainable way.
Yeah, I guess we're sometimes surprised at the things that people want to buy. Like, there's just, especially on eBay, where there's such a huge kind of audience, don't write off things, like you say, with a missing button, like certain type of damage. Even the thing I'm most surprised about is when you get items with company branding on. People want to buy this stuff. And certain things I look at personally and I go, whoa, there's no way this is selling. Someone wants it. So I think just give it a go probably is the...
I'll have to sell my eBay t-shirt after the event.
I think the usability of a product as well. So someone actually, what are they actually going to use it for? And if it has got a zip problem or that button, as Andy said, or it's got a tear in it even, some people will still use that and take it out into going up a mountain or anything like that. So the acceptance of a product not being brand new and actually being down what Matt described as sort of a grading scale, that has gone so much further than probably anything in the past. You know, in the UK, we send over 300,000 tons into landfill every year of fashion goes in there. So that is going to come down, that number, and the only way to do that is make more clothes acceptable within the pre-loved sector.
Yeah, right. Go on, what were you going to say?
No, nothing.
Look, the time has flown by, so thank you all for sharing so candidly and openly and honestly. I think what you're doing is amazing to change consumers' perception. These guys are going to be around if you've got any other questions for them in the break or later on in the networking section. But just before we close, I just want to share something with you that's not officially been announced. We have partnered with the British Fashion Council, I'm going to call it BFC because it's quite a mouthful, to launch a new innovation fund. So if there are any businesses or people that are thinking of starting up a business that accelerate solutions around the circular economy, then you can nominate yourself for one. There's six businesses will receive a 6-week bespoke mentoring program with eBay and industry experts, and at the end there'll be an overall winner that gets selected. So there'll be more information to come. As I say, it will get officially announced in the next few days, but there is a QR code if you want more details and you're thinking about that. If you could give I feel like you're in my living room, but give my guests a round of applause. Thank you.